This is a lecture on a debate that a lot of people talk about in the law of attraction community, and when it comes to mindset and beliefs, the debate between letting go versus burning desire when it comes to manifestation and getting what you want and making your desired reality concrete. So if you want to know more, stay tuned till the end of the episode. Once again, I am very appreciative of those who listen to the podcast, who listen to the video, who listen to this episode, this lecture. Comment, like, even bad comments, even bad likes, it does help my channel anyway, so appreciate it, even though that might not be your desired outcome. That being said, let's get into the subject. Letting go versus burning desire. It's often debated when it comes to manifestation. On one side, you got the ones that believe that action is required to make one's desire come to fruition. You'll hear things like the action is the last word in the law of attraction, or that massive actions are needed once you have the right mindset, i.e. Tony Robbins. On the other hand, you have others who believe that things will come to you given the proper way of thinking. Sadhguru said that when one's mind is set in the right way, one need not even lift a finger to have one's desire manifest. So which is it? I want to read one excerpt from Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich book and one other excerpt from David Hawkins Letting Go book. That's the first one by Napoleon Hill. I believe in the power of desire, backed by faith, because I have seen this power lift men from lowly beginnings to places of power and wealth. I have seen it rob the grave of its victims. I have seen it serve as the medium by which men staged a comeback after having been defeated in 100 different ways. I've seen it provide my own son with a normal, happy, successful life despite nature's having sent him into the world without ears. How can one harness and use the power of desire? This has been answered through this and the subsequent chapters of this book. This message is going out to the world at the end of the longest and perhaps the most devastating depression America has ever known. It is reasonable to presume that the message may come to the attention of many who have been wounded by the depression. Those who have lost their fortunes, others who have lost their positions, and great numbers who must reorganize their plans and stage a comeback. To all these, I wish to convey the thought that all achievement, no matter what may be its nature or its purpose, must begin with an intense, burning desire for something definite. Through some strange and powerful principle of mental chemistry, which was never been divulged, nature wraps up in the impulse of strong desire that something which recognizes no such word as impossible and accepts no such reality as failure. And that's the first excerpt. Second excerpt from the book Letting Go by David Hawkins. Desire as an obstacle. There is often a lack of understanding of the function of wanting and desire. The main illusion is seen in the statement, the only way that I can get what I want is by desiring it. If I let go of my desire, then I won't get what I want. Actually, the opposite is true. Desire, especially strong desire, frequently blocks out getting what we want. Why is this so? Actually, the way something comes into our life is because we have chosen it. It was the result of our intention, or we made a decision for it. It has come into our lives in spite of desire. The desiring was actually the obstacle to its achievement or acquisition. This is because desire literally means I do not have. In other words, if we say that we desire something, we are saying that it isn't ours. When we say that it isn't ours, we put a psychic distance between ourselves and what we want. This distance becomes the obstacle that consumes energy. The impossible becomes possible as soon as we are totally surrendered. This is because wanting blocks receiving it and results in a fear of not getting it. The energy of desire is, in essence, a denial that what we want is ours for the asking. This is a different way of looking at achieving goals than the one we are used to from the programming of the world. We are used to picturing ambition and success as being associated with hard work and the classical Protestant ethic virtues. These include self-sacrifice, asceticism, a great expenditure of effort and endeavor, keeping our nose to the grindstone, tightening our belts, buckling down, and all the grimness of hard work. When we look at this whole picture, it sounds arduous, doesn't it? Well, it is. It involves struggle, and the struggle results from the block we have put in our own way because of desire. Let's compare the arduous lower consciousness way of achieving goals with a higher state of consciousness, in which we have acknowledged and let go of the desire and are in a freer state. In a freer state, that which is chosen manifests itself in our lives effortlessly. We surrender the emotion of desire and instead merely choose the goal, picture it lovingly, and allow it to happen because we see that it is already ours. Why is it already ours? In a lower state of consciousness, the universe is seen as negative, denying, frustrating, and reluctant. It is like a bad, stingy parent. In a higher state of consciousness, our experience of the universe changes. It now becomes like a giving, loving, unconditionally approving parent who wants us to have everything we want. And it is ours for the asking. This is creating a different context. It is giving the universe a different meaning. Although the world may be stingy and hostile to other people, there is no reason why we should buy into this paradigm. When we buy into this, we make it that way in our own lives. As we experience the letting go of desires, we begin to see that what we have chosen will come into our life almost magically. What we hold in mind tends to manifest. As was said before, during times of supposed high unemployment, some people are not only employed, but they have 2 or 3 jobs. This was a shockingly new way of looking at the world when it was first encountered. There was the hope that it was true, but also a skepticism that said this just isn't possible on a pragmatic level. A strict quote-unquote Protestant ethic background made it hard to believe. Nonetheless, the willingness was there to be open-minded enough to give it a try. Here was the initial experience with letting go of desire. Personal goals were written down, followed by a letting go of the desire for them. It sounds paradoxical, but that is the process. Identify the goals and then let go of wanting them. One goal that had been held in mind for several years was an apartment in New York City. Because work commitments required a lot of commuting and money spent on hotel rooms. A small apartment in the city, a so-called pied-à-terre, would be the economical solution. Apartment in New York City was written down as a goal. When utilizing this way of achieving goals, we include all of the details, as impossible as they may seem to the rational mind to achieve. So the ideal apartment was detailed, reasonably priced on 5th Avenue in the 70s block, right next to the entrance to Central Park, at least 8 or 9 floors up and in the rear, so that the street noise would be minimized and not any bigger than 2.5 rooms. The next day at work, it was busy as usual, with a caseload, meetings, and patient visits. In between the meetings and patients, the feeling of wantingness for the apartment would be acknowledged and let go. And as the day progressed, the apartment was actually forgotten. At 4:30 p.m., after the last patient, there was suddenly the impulse to drive into the city. Despite the fact that it was ostensibly rush hour, the road was clear and the drive took only half an hour. The car cruised to about 73rd and Lexington, pulling up to the nearest real estate office. Rather magically, there happened to be a parking space open right in front of the real estate office. The real estate officer, upon hearing the tongue-in-cheek announcement that an apartment on 5th Avenue was desired, looked with surprise and said, "Well, you are certainly in luck. Exactly 1 hour ago, we listed the apartment for rent on all of Fifth Avenue at 70th Street on the 9th floor. It's the rear apartment, 2.5 rooms, and the rent is reasonable. It has just been painted and you can move anytime. So we walked over and viewed the apartment. It fit the description of the goal exactly. The lease was signed on the spot. Thus, within 24 hours of trying the letting go technique on a specific personal goal, the goal was a reality. It had been something that was almost impossible to find, and yet it happened exactly as pictured, effortlessly and with no negative emotions. It was an easy and joyous experience. This is not an unusual experience by the typical one, because in this case the desire was moderate and could, without much effort, be totally surrendered. By being totally surrendered, this means that it was okay if the apartment happened and it was okay if it didn't. Because of being totally surrendered, the impossible became possible, manifesting itself effortlessly and rapidly. We can all doubt this mechanism and look back at things that we wanted and that was achieved through ambition, desire, craving, and even obsessive, frenzied wanting. The mind says, well, what if I had let go of the desire for those things? If it weren't for the desire, how would I have gotten them? Truth is, we could have gotten them anyway, only without anxiety, without all the energy expenditure, without all the effort, without all the trial and error, and without all the hard work. Well, the mind says, if we got it effortlessly, how about the pride of achievement? Wouldn't we have to sacrifice that? Well, yes, we would have to relinquish the vanity of all that sacrifice and hard work that we put into it. We would have to give up the sentimentality about the self-sacrifice and all the pain and suffering we went through to achieve our goals. This is a peculiar perversion in our society, isn't it? If we suddenly become successful almost effortlessly, then people are envious. It really annoys them that we didn't have to go through all kinds of anguish, pain, and suffering to get there. Their mind believes that such anguish is a cost that must be paid for success. Let's look at this belief. If it weren't for the negative programming that made us believe otherwise, why should we go through any cost of pain and suffering to achieve anything in our life? Isn't that a rather sadistic view of the world and the universe? Other blocks to the achievement of our wants and desire, of course, are unconscious guilt and smallness. Peculiarly, the unconscious will allow us to have only what we think we deserve. The more we hang on to our negativity and the small self-image that results, the less we think we deserve. And we unconsciously deny ourselves the abundance which flows so easily to others. That is the reason for the saying, the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. If we have a small view of ourselves and we deserve, then what we deserve is poverty, and our unconscious will see to it that we have that actuality. As we relinquish our smallness and revalidate our own inner innocence, and as we let go of resisting our generosity, openness, trust, lovingness, and faith, then the unconscious will automatically start arranging life's circumstances so that our abundance begins to flow in life. Now that we have finished both excerpts, we can clearly see there are two ways of going about it. And I apologize for the confusion, but I think it's important to address this issue. The prerequisite to manifest one's desire is belief. Whether you believe it or not is your problem. Whether you believe it will happen with actions or not is up to you. The more important thing, however, is to let go of the resistance and do what feels natural and good. Actions backed by fear and desperation will not yield good results most of the time, or at least not in the long run. And by that I mean you can go a long way with desire and fear, but you won't necessarily be fulfilled and satisfied. And if you learn how to let go and see, as David Hawkins says, see the world as a friendly place, as a loving parent, things will happen more effortlessly and you will be more in the flow and more in tune with your own creativity, and therefore have more answers and higher level of consciousness when it comes to your answers and decision. Therefore, you will make better choices and it will have better outcomes by virtue of just letting go. Neville Goddard said that what will happen once you Write down your belief, write down your desires, and let them go, and let go of the resistance. Your life will move in a certain way, and circumstances will happen without you lifting a finger, in a sense that you would be moved organically and naturally towards your goal without necessarily knowing. However, if you always resist without letting go of the desire, you kind of negate your own desires. So what you have to do is, as David Hawkins was, you can start with a burning desire, but this burning desire has to be translated as an intention, not as such a burning desire that it actually becomes a way of seeing lack in your life instead of having gratitude. So once you decide to have an intention and translate this burning desire into an intention, just let it go and occupy yourself with things that feel good and things that come naturally and organically. And more often than not, you will reach a certain level where you will get more and more effortless. Obviously at the beginning it will be hard because you need to let go, and the most important thing is obviously to keep a mental diet of keeping the negativity at bay, right? But some negativity needs to be let go. It's easier sometimes to let go of negative thoughts, but a lot of negative thoughts, as David Hawkins said, were unearthed, if you will, and you need to dig deeper and let it come up, because usually, as David Hawkins said, those thoughts come from a feeling, and those feelings are things that might be repressed. So don't be worried if, like, sometimes you let go of negative thoughts and you have more and more of them. It means that something is coming up, and when the feeling reaches the surface, then you have to let go and progressively let go until it feels lighter. Sometimes you have chronic feelings that will stay because the trauma is so strong, but you might not necessarily, after all, unless you're gonna go for enlightenment, there are things that will come and come again. But the more you let go, it might come now and again, but you'll be able to cope with it much better. So there it is. I hope you like this episode, and I'll see you next time.